Welcome, home gamers. Here's a little project I made out of a piece of A2 tool steel that was accidentally shipped to me in some other order. Why let it go to waste? So I made here this Game of Thrones-y looking dagger. The blade is 13 inches long from the tip to the guard, and there's about another 7.5 inches on the handle, which is leather wrapped. It was kind of a fun project, and I left the hammer marks on the center of the blade because I just think it adds character. Yeah, I'm leaving the edges not really razor sharp because I think this is going to be more of a show piece than a go piece, if you know what I'm saying. It was kind of cool, and I'll show you how it was done. Actually, this project was inspired because I had this piece of A2 tool steel laying around. Actually, I didn't even buy this. I had bought some 01 flat stock and some 01 round stock from a metal supplier, and they had sent me these two pieces of A2 steel. Never charged me for them. They just had them in there. This is an air hardening tool steel. So I have the basic shape of the blade cut out here, and as you saw by the finished product, I plan on putting a brass guard here, and this is my first attempt at a stacked leather handle. It will be stacked leather here and a brass pommel at the end. And I have some ideas how I'm going to do all of that, but anyway, I'm going to get these bits cut off with the angle grinder, and this part will be the tang here, and then we'll grind the profile, and that's the material we're using. Okay, I got the shape roughed out on the grinder, and now comes a very important part that I want to talk about. And this bucket here is 100% pure vermiculite. I believe it's like a ground mica compound, or it's a mineral. Yeah, they use this in potting soil to keep the soil loose and aerated. I bought a big bag of it that fills up this 10-gallon bucket at the Home Depot for like 20 bucks. Now this is something, I subscribe to a lot of blade makers and a lot of blacksmith channels, and I've never seen this mentioned before. When you're working with tool steels, before you really do anything harsh to them, like I'm not going to forge this, but I'm going to put it in the forge because I want the center part distressed. It's supposed to be an old style weapon, right? So I'm going to be heating it up. I'm going to be doing some hammering. I'm going to be doing some grinding. This process that I'm about to do is known as annealing, and it's before you do any work to it. And the Society of Metallurgical Engineers has a whole table out on the internet with different tool steels and how to anneal them. Okay, so basically I'll be using the forge to get this hot, about 1400 degrees, which is like a dull cherry color, and then it will be plunged into here, and you leave it. This is a super insulating material. I did a round bar of 01 tool steel, and I wanted to anneal the first 8 inches of it or so, and I put it in there. It was still red after 20 minutes, 2 hours later, it was still so hot that you couldn't touch it. So this allows cooling to come down very slowly, and consequently when you're heating it up, whether you're doing it in a coal forge or a propane forge, heat it as slowly as you can. So we have slow heating and slow cooling, and that basically sets the strata of the metal. Much less prone to cracking, much less prone to warping during final heat treat. And I'm just amazed that I've never saw any of this on the YouTube channels that I watch. And I was taught this by a man who is a blacksmith and certified bladesmith at the South Jersey Society of Blacksmiths, one of those organizations. The guy knows his stuff. He's been doing this better part of 50 years. And he told me, always anneal the tool steels before I start working them. So that's the step we're going to take right now. I'll get the forge fired up and we'll get that done. Running the blade in and out of the propane forge, and I'm getting it to a dull cherry color as evenly as possible. I know this isn't very scientific, but it is effective. Now, one of the things you have to be sure about is you buy pure vermiculite. Don't get vermiculite mixed with anything, because if it's mixed with something, sometimes it's mixed with plastic, a biodegradable plastic that will melt all over your piece. You'll have a mess on your hands. This blade's 13 inches long. This furnace is only 8 inches deep, so you have to keep it moving. All right, we're right about there now. All right, look. So on the yellow screen, got our nice cherry color. Into the vermiculite it goes, and it stays there. It stays there. This is a super insulator. This piece will stay hot for over an hour. Hot enough that you won't be able to touch it. And that's what we want. We want the nice, slow heat up and the nice, slow cool down. And that gives us our annealing. Now this sets the whole process. This anneals the metal and gets it to its optimum working state. Very important. If you're working with tool steels, do the annealing process. Okay, now we have our properly annealed blade here. What we're going to do, what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just distress mostly in the center of this. Put some dings and some, ball peen marks in it on both sides, just to kind of, I want to give it like an older type of feel, and anyway, that's the look I'm looking for, and that's what we're going to be doing. All right, now I just basically put a kind of a rough grind on here, and then I went and heat treated it. And the reason why I heat treated it, hardened and tempered it now, is because it's a 13-inch thin blade, and there's a good possibility of this warping. So I may as well heat treat it and grind it hard. Now, I'm not looking for, you know, the epitome of a razor's edge on this thing. This is more of an ornamental piece, not a functional piece. Okay, it's going to be styled in a medieval kind of style, so I'm not going to be crazy about its cutting edge or its edge holding capabilities. So I just wanted to get it hardened so everything will stay where it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a quick 45 and bring it into the final line, which you can't see on here because it won't focus. And then I'm going to switch belts to my 60 grit, and I'm going to end up with what's called a convex grind on this blade, which I think is a good kind of thing for this, because if I was making an actual weapon, I'd want the convex blade because of the strength. Convex blade doesn't hold an edge very well, but it's very strong, and it can always be resharpened, which is why you see the Vikings always stoning their swords and stuff. So I want to get onto the grinder, and we'll get that step out of the way. Alright, that's about what I'm looking for. This is a nice convex grind, and actually I think I could have distressed the blade a little bit more. I was a little too frugal, but it's basically what I was looking for. I put an edge on it, but I didn't go too crazy with the edge. I don't want this thing too sharp, man. This could be I don't know. Like I said, it's more ornamental, decorative, medieval type thing than a functional tool. Although if you really want to work that edge, you could chop down trees with this thing. The next thing to do is this handle. I'll be having a brass guard here, a brass pommel at this end. I have to come up with some way of probably doing a cut and weld piece of all thread on here, so I can thread the pommel on, but the rest of the handle will be stacked leather. And that will give it its pirate look, I guess. Or medieval look, or whatever. But anyway, that's about as far as I'm going to take the steel. I don't really see the need to go any further than that. Somebody hurt themselves with this thing. Alright then. For the handle. Okay, what I did here is I just cut a little 1/4 inch by about a 1/2 inch notch in here, and I welded a piece of 1/4 inch all thread at the very end, and I ground it down so the leather and the other stuff will fit over it, and this will allow me to thread my pommel on the end. Okay, so that's what we do there, and we have a boatload of leather pieces that are all going to be stacked to make our handle. That's a stacked leather handle. It's the first one I'm doing, but so we have a gazillion of these. I don't know, there's probably about 40 of these for the whole handle, and we'll get those epoxied in place, and we'll get back to you. Okay, now I have my stacked leather all epoxied, and I had the last several pieces that I was able to really torque down, and I epoxied that as well on the inside of the thread, so that should be a nice tight handle. So this epoxy has to dry. This is a good I think this is a good 30-minute epoxy at least. So this is going to go overnight. And then we have to start shaping the handle tomorrow. And we do that on the belt grinder. Till such time. Okay, we're moving along, and I started getting this stacked leather handle roughed out. Now, grinding this leather and the epoxy is harder than doing any wood I've ever finished. That's probably because the belt loads up so fast with the leather. This is a 36 grit belt, and it's loaded up pretty good. I mean, it wasn't brand new, but it wasn't really used much. Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass, but I know some guys, they do a rough cut on a bandsaw or something like that. But yeah, so I just have a few irregularities to finish up with this belt. Then I'll move to a 60 grit, and it's almost there. You know, it needs to be taken down a little bit more, about another 1/4 of an inch overall in the diameter. And then I'll move up the grits. When I hit to about 120, I'll start hitting on the brass too to polish that up a bit. So we'll get there. Just a lot more grinding. And here it is. It's got a nice balance to it. Feels good in the hand. Yeah, that was kind of fun to make. Give it a shot.